I have some plans for some more time terrain, but it will extend on several levels, so it would look rather silly on a flat table. To prepare for that, I built these terrain risers, which will create different levels of elevation on the table. We've just replaced our letterboxes at the apartment block I live in, so being part raccoon, I ended up with a bunch of cardboard packaging. This project looked like it would eat it up nicely, so I decided to use that as a foundation and start planning. My plan was to make a bunch of modular risers 20 cm on the side and 5 cm tall. Based on these external dimensions, I started to plan out the cuts I needed to make. Now, there is a bit of math here, but it's all subtraction, so it shouldn't be too complicated. If you still want to avoid it, I will be leaving downloadable templates in my Patreon, and a chapter below so you can skip all the scary numbers. I plan to collect the risers in 5mm thick foam bricks, so the frame would need to be 5mm shorter on either side, or 19 cm in total. It would also need to be 5mm lower, so 4.5 cm tall. The top would rest on the sides, so I needed to lower those a bit more. The card I had was 2mm thick, which gave me a final height of 4.3 cm. I wanted to have the sides join up so that the end of one connects to the face of its neighbor, all the way around. This is important as it means that all the side pieces will be the same size. If you wanted to, you could do them so that the edges on one pair connect to the faces on the other pair, but then you would need to have 2 long and 2 short pieces. When you're building batches, it helps to minimize the number of components, as it makes cutting and assembly a lot faster. Reducing the amount of time you need to stop and think cuts down on a lot of mistakes, especially if you're doing repetitive work. Now, to fit the frame size of 19 cm, I need to take the thickness of the card off one side, leaving me with 18.8 cm. These risers aren't huge, but 19 cm is a fair bit, so I was worried about the cardboard sagging if it was left unsupported, especially since other terrain would be stacked on it. I had to put something inside to prevent that. This does mean that I am not able to use the inside of the box for storage. If that's a thing you would like to do, check out Campaign Terrain's city block video. My first idea was to build a few smaller boxes and stick them in as supports, but after I built a pair I scrapped the idea as that would take ages. Instead, I thought to make a hive of pieces which would interlock. These pieces need to fit inside the boxes, so they have to be 2mm shorter than the side pieces. The cuts are also 2mm wide, and the important thing here is that they are symmetrical, so once you've cut them, their facing doesn't matter. They line up in any orientation. Again, removing variables makes the job faster. The cuts go just a little over halfway into the piece. This is so there's a bit of tolerance when cutting. Snipping out the end is a bit tricky, but the pieces aren't designed to bottom out, so even if you don't get a perfectly consistent cut, they're still going to go together just fine. Once I had my plan, I made some templates and got to cutting and assembling. The hives went together snugly. There's really no need to glue them, though you can if you want to. The sides can be a bit fiddly to work with, but it gets easier with practice. I used PVA glue and some painter's tape to hold things together while they dried, and then glued them into the hive. It helps if you put something heavy to hold them together while the glue dries. The top went on in the same way. I put PVA on the top edges, locked it in place with painter's tape, and then put some weight on it. I found that flipping the piece upside down and putting the weight on the bottom side works best, as the corners might try to curl up otherwise. Once I had my frames, I gave them all a coat of varnish. Next, I got to cutting some bricks. It's still a pain, but I really liked the way my piece for the Let There Be Light challenge looked, and I wanted these to look that way. You could of course glue on some foam board or some foam sheets and scribe the brickwork, and that would look fine too. Now, if you want to save yourself some work, it's fairly easy to calculate how many bricks you need by volume, if not by number. I wanted to have a few to spare so I don't have to do this again for a while, so I made plenty more. But it's really not out of fun really, so you might not want to do so many. I went for 10 by 5 by 5mm bricks with a few large and smaller ones for variety. To make the bricks look worn, I rub them in my hands. It doesn't take much and you can do handfuls at a time. With the bricks sorted out, I started gluing. Just spread some PVA on the sides and lay them down in rows at an offset, leaving a little gap between them. I find it easiest to start from a corner so I can gauge the offset from the bricks round the corner. This is a long, tedious and soul-destroying task. So while I was doing it, I popped on some podcasts or jumped into a Discord hangout to keep my mind occupied. If you want to join in, there's a link to Dungeon Matron's Discord hangout and links to my own Discord in the description. Whatever you do, don't count the bricks as you go. Thinking about how many bricks are still left to go will drain your motivation. Just keep putting one brick after the other. Eventually the last brick was in place. Now, I was planning to top this off with 1x1 cm slabs, but when I posted a photo of this mighty erection on the Tabletop Crafters Guild, I was shown some terrain with an 1/8 of an inch cobblestones. It looked great, so I decided to mix some of those in. Then I realized it would take around 401 cm bricks to surface one riser, which works out to 1605 mm bricks. So I decided not to. Thanks anyway, Cory. The easiest way I found to cover the surfaces was to work in rows, starting off the alternating rows with smaller bricks to offset them. When you're close to halfway, start working in from the opposite edge. The last row will usually be a bit tight, and you can easily pop the bricks in. After that, it's time to deploy the foil ball. The large foil ball. Just wear the surface over to give it some texture, then seal everything with black paint and PVA. I made sure to prime the bottom edges of the foam too, as I would be spraying this with varnish later. There were a couple of spots where the runoff dripped off the top, but I figured that would be hidden once it got grimed over. For a base coat, I used a light blue-grey. I wasn't looking for full coverage here, as variations help the stone look. Then I picked out a few stones on each piece in earth colors. Next I sprayed everything with a gloss varnish and slathered them all with polyfiller. What you want to do here is slap it everywhere, then massage it into the deepest recesses and off the high spots. Surfaces this size are a little harder to do without leaving streaks, but if you put some water in your hands it's a lot easier. I did put some dish soap in the mix to help it spread better, a useful tip I got from Lawrence from Dirty Basement Terrain. Once the filler had time to set, I came back in with washes. First a Payne's Grey, then a burnt umber. Nothing complicated here, just heavily dilute the paint and splash it on. Once it's dry, dry brush and ivory. I really like this system as it's really simple and you're never painting anything smaller than a full surface. Now that I have these risers, I can start working on my next project, which will be a bit more complicated since I've locked myself into using individual bricks. Still, it looks good. Maybe I'll do something a little smaller first, like some ladders and walkways. Yeah, I'll probably go do that now. Bye!